Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. This is our program, Juxtaposition. Welcome, you caught me again. Issues affecting black folks affecting change. So we're here today again. This is the 12th of March, 2025. We're here on our the program today. We're calling it, Where Does It Hurt? Where Does It Hurt? And I am so glad to be with you today. I'm glad to be able to hang out with you just for a few minutes. I am joined today by Eric Agnero. Eric, what's going on?
Oh,
so good to see you, bro.
So happy to be here, you know?
It's good to see you. Yeah, I wanted to just bring you in. I'm so glad that you're here to have the conversation with us today. Folks, today, talking about the current state, just what's going on. What is going on in America? What is going on in America? There's so many things happening. Conducted some analysis. I'm happy to come in and share some of that with you. The current administration has embarked on a sweeping campaign to reverse what we think is to be decades of civil rights progress, with policies that disproportionately harm black communities and aim to erase systemic racism from our public discourse. So what we're looking at right now is there is so much going on across the United States, and we just want to stop and reflect on some of that and see how that's landing with some people. Eric, I don't know, man. I mean, are you getting a sense, are you even hearing anybody having these kinds of conversations, or what's the climate like?
It's interesting. What I hear is silence almost. You know, people, I mean, I don't see much. Of course, everybody's talking about that. But like in shock and awe, like I don't see any reaction to it yet, but yes, I can hear it. And then it's interesting, I was at the association, the African, living in Vermont, and the young, American from Congo asked me, Uncle, am I going to be deported?
Wow.
You know, that anxiety is felt throughout, the different communities that will be clearly affected by that. But in a general sense, I have the feeling that, the American society is just like
frozen. You think that it's because they're fearful of being kind of like harassed or?
Yeah, I think that they don't know. I mean, people don't know what to do, because even me as a journalist and as a community activist, I don't even know where I can go, what I can say, what I can do. Right. I was even, and bless, God bless her soul, working with Sandy Bed. Even God Sandy Bed, who at some point said, Eric, we don't know. We don't know what we can do, what we can say. So I think that people, and then also you have like what it hurts the most, money. So I have the feeling that people want to protect as much as they can, money and privilege.
Exactly. So take a look at this slide. So what we see is dismantling of DEI. I'm just going to go through a few things, because a lot of folks are saying, what? A lot of people are saying, well, what is the problem? I don't understand what the problem is. And the reason why is there's so many things that are coming at us so rapidly. There's so many things. Just today, we woke up to find out that half of the Department of Education, the Agency of Education, is gone. So, and what does that mean, and what parts of it are gone? We'll talk more about that later. But here you see executive orders that are they're eliminating initiatives, DEI initiatives from federal agencies and private institutions. We're seeing how the DOJ has signaled its intent to sue corporations that actually engage in diversity outreach, and they're even falsely equating DEI to some efforts to racial discrimination, which is not, unlike we've been seeing with the affirmative actions. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment has actually been reversed to be used in that way. I'm going to keep going through a couple more slides. So you got that, and then of course there's the rollback of civil rights. The EEOC, they're deprioritizing civil rights cases related to employment discrimination as well as voting rights and policing. And then there's Title VI Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination in federally funded programs. It's under review. I think that's all but done for potential weakening. And then here you got public education and also historical truth. Well, I just mentioned the deconstruction of the education department, and of course that's going to be ongoing. But then, of course, bans on CRT and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. Erosion of the voting rights, which had already started as early as 2013 when they gutted the Voting Rights Act. And then also, in addition to that, various threats to social safety nets as well. Yeah. So they're coming at us from all sides. Medicaid, Medicare, food assistance, rollback of economic protections have also been exacerbated by the racial wealth disparities, because we know before all of this started, the wealth gap, the median wealth of a black family was 13 times less than the median wealth of a white family. So all of this stuff is converging, seemingly like at the epicenter is on the black family in across the United States. But yet and still, it seems pretty quiet. You're not hearing much of anything. And I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, and we're gonna talk more about that, is yeah, you're right. I think economics has something to do with it. But I think honestly, before we even get into economics and politics, a lot of folks, they're just some people are confused.
Confused, yeah.
Some people are afraid. Some people are. It's cognitive dissonance. They're like, no, this is really not happening. Yeah. So there's a lot of different responses. I think reminiscent of like 2016. Remember when he was first elected? A lot of folks were frozen, fearful. I think it's at another level right now, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think right now it's that, especially when, everything that makes this country maybe, I won't say exceptional, but, democracy, 3 branches of government, checks and balances. Like in few weeks, all this is wiped out. So it's even, it makes you being even more scared, because if an administration can destroy even the democratic pillars, fundamentals of a country, how can you resist such a machine?
Right.
How can your little voice to ask for more protection for those disenfranchised people to be heard? That's very frightening.
Yeah, I get it, and I think also what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling is just like I said, it's like disbelief. It's kind of like it's not that folks don't want to do something. It's just that they're still trying to get their heads around it. And I think a deep analysis is required. Like a lot of the information that I'm sharing right now is because I actually stepped back, and I've got a lot of national partners that we do work with. There's some deep analysis that we've done here locally as well. But really stopping and taking a look, what we've come to understand, and this is going to frighten some who are watching, don't be afraid, but some who are watching, is that honestly, the trajectory at which we are on and the velocity at which we're going.
The velocity,
yeah, it's unparalleled, and I think the only time in history that we can really see where this has happened, where we've gone back so rapidly, is actually at the fall of Reconstruction. So we're talking 1880, somewhere between 1880 and maybe 1920, somewhere in there. This is where Plessy versus Ferguson came in, separate but equal. And this is when we fell into convict leasing. We fell into the old Jim Crow, lynching. So all of that stuff became pervasive. This is the period that this time right now is equivalent to as it pertains to civil rights. And to me, anyway, what I'm suggesting is that's gotta be scary. It's very nerve-wracking to me, but I'm thinking as a nation, the United States of America, we're at a place right now where, because of our velocity and our trajectory, it is equivalent to a time in history which is some of our darkest years, the Gilded Age.
But what could be the foundation for all this shaking? I mean, I don't know what. Were we recently equal? I mean, to the Reconstruction period, were we seeing something like that? So much so that people will react like Jim Crow.
Yeah, but is that? Oh, stop it! But the thing is as I think about it, well, I got a lot of thoughts about this, and it affects me. It affects the way that I look at everything. I hit the reset button and I look around. I look nationally. I look at what elected officials are doing. Our United States congressional delegation. I look at what folks are saying. I look at how folks prioritize their time. What it is that they're doing. What is our legislature currently doing? What is our governor doing right now? What is our mayor doing? What are our activists doing right now? And call me an activist snob or something like that, but I'm just thinking, I'm like, hey, why are we not coming together right now? Why are we not unifying behind a message? And I think part of it has to do with the fact that many folks don't know what message to unify behind. And I think that a lot of folks, they're in their frantic desire to want to do something. They're just making up stuff. They're creating new organizations. They're doing new things. But I don't think there's a lot of people that are really stopping and doing a deep analysis and asking themselves, of all of the challenges that we're facing as a nation, which of them are the most crucial? What of these, as what this administration is doing to us as a nation, what is going to be the thing that hurts us most? What do we need to be looking at most closely? And call me biased, no pun intended, but my thing is if we don't have civil rights, if we don't have civil rights in America, if we're really rolling those back, where does that leave us as a nation? And how does everything else matter more? How can anything else matter more?
Yeah, but I have the feeling that civil right is linked to its place in history. People don't grasp the fact that civil rights is a continuum. Exactly. That it's something that happened when Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, So it's over, right?
So they don't even equate anything like even going to school, and then also the administration was successful in making believe that it's all about DEI, black folks. So people look, but listen, we already have passed this, so maybe it's a reminder that we haven't done much progress.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is a reminder.
Because we were like on the assumption that everything was all right, and then hey, we have to wake up because this is unprecedented.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that we know. Speaking of the Reconstruction, we know that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States is what was used to pivot us from slavery. So what we understand is that the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment is what all civil rights policies, all civil rights laws were built upon. So there were probably a half dozen civil rights acts within the United States. The one that we know most is the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because it's the most recent one. But upon it was not just the protection of civil rights for black folks. And now we got to be mindful, the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause was specifically designed to protect black folks at Reconstruction. And the Civil Rights Act of 1964 utilized that as a foundation to create civil rights for black folks in America. However, all women's rights, all LGBTQIA rights, loving, the right to marry interracially, all disability rights, all of these rights are built upon that
yeah,
foundation.
foundation, yeah.
The foundation is the racial justice.
yeah.
But, so what I'm getting at here is again, we're talking about civil rights going backwards in America over 100 years. It's at its epicenter is black folks. However, it impacts all of the aforementioned.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Take a look at this slide, because the question is why can't we do anything about it?
Yes. What? I mean,
like, what is going on here? And this goes to where does it hurt? You know, when we opened up, where does it hurt? So I'm going to say it. We got some white fragility. There is fear of loss. Many white Americans, they see racial progress as a direct threat to their status, their privilege. The resistance to systemic change, it often manifests itself. What do you get? Nope, wasn't me. Denial, defensiveness. Why are you calling me a racist? The refusal to acknowledge the structural benefits that they receive. In other words, if you do nothing, you benefit. That's why they call it white privilege. And we've been saying all of these things up until now. That hasn't seemed to have been enough. That hasn't seemed to have been enough. Also, the institutional and political and economic barriers. We know that the courts are stacked. The right-wing media is out of control with all of this rhetoric, making this racial justice more difficult to achieve. And then finally, politicians, and then I also inserted, and executives, because, you know, whether it's in corporations or whether it's in nonprofits, they are, even the moderate ones, they've been unwilling to risk political and economic capital and to fully expose these rollbacks. And what do I mean by that is we know that the federal government, their contribution to all states' budget is incredibly significant. We know that many, especially major nonprofits, how they're being funded, that federal funding is incredibly significant. So there's a lot on the line. There's some decisions that states, state governors, legislatures, that CEOs, that executive directors that they're having to make. And many folks are choosing the path of least resistance, which is silence.
Yeah.
And this is not unlike the same challenges that we had before this all started. It's just a different flavor. So these are some of the things that they're seeing and we're experiencing. I think what's important to embrace, though, is this whole idea of what I call exclusionary policy harm. Because with the economic consequences, there's a lack of investment in marginalized communities. But what it's doing is it's stifling economic growth and innovation in workforce development for all of us. So what I'm trying to get at here is we've got to start having some real frank conversations about how this is impacting all of us. In other words, where does it hurt? Research consistently shows us that diverse, equitable workplaces and societies lead to greater prosperity for all. So these are some of the things, you know, we saw it in Heather McGhee's book, The Sum of Us, but these are some of the things that we've got to come back with and start talking about how exclusionary policy, and here's the best way that I can sum it up, and I wonder if you might have any analogies as well, is I sum it up very simply, is whenever there's an exclusionary policy that's created and it excludes any group of people, at the end of the day, it ends up hurting all people.
All people.
All people. And we just keep doing it over and over again.
War. Every time, you know, even Haile Selassie said, you know, until the color of one person's skin will have a significance, there always be war.
Yeah.
And then, so the peace or whatever advantage that a group might think that they will get will collapse.
It'll collapse eventually.
Eventually, it will collapse. But maybe I think that is it maybe because America is like the cult for capitalism. Because, I mean, okay, the idea
Are you picking on us?
the idea is like we're gonna cut the government spending. We're gonna make like savings, but it's all about money. But how can you make savings, and then how can you ensure that if you don't have DEI, if you don't push a little bit those who don't have the means or those who are disenfranchised, how can you do that when you sacrifice education? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, during the Civil Rights era, and Heather McGee writes about this in her book, The Sum of Us. She said when they integrated swimming pools, many communities just buried them because they would prefer to bury the swimming pools as opposed to sending their children to swim with black children. And there are instances, I think it was in Virginia, their schools were closed for 2 years after integration because they decided that they didn't want to do it. So, I mean, kicking and screaming as you will, at some point or another, you just have to come to terms with the fact that it's better for us to do well for everyone than it is to try to exclude others. Take a look at some of this other stuff, political and social instability. So the continued marginalization of black communities, it fuels unrest. It's like a fire hose of unrest, disengagement and distrust. That's what's going on right now. The U.S. remains deeply divided because it has never fully reckoned with the consequences of slavery and racial oppression. That's why we're here today. And what this administration is attempting to do is to once again dissuade or prevent or preclude us from doing just that. Exactly what we need to do. In other words, we need to take our medicine, not avoid it. We need to face it head on, not try to circumvent it, because the more we circumvent it, the more we kick the can down the road. And then the other one is the moral and the democratic imperatives that are involved here. True justice. And this is really the kicker. I think this is what we came for. This is all of the meat and potatoes right here. This is that justice, stability, security, none of that can be achieved unless systemic racism is actually confronted, not avoided. The failure to address these injustices, it actually weakens America's global standing as a defender of human rights and democracy. I mean, look at us. Look at who we are aligned with at the United Nations now. Come on. Who's our allies now at the United Nations? Who are we pairing up with?
But believe me, around Africa, where I come from, and then I came to this country because no matter what was going on here, it was still, holding on to an ideal that, could have been, felt even in Africa. But today, all the dictators, all the tyrants over there, the best buddy is the president of the U.S. When I was a journalist...
The tyrants, huh?
Yeah. When I was a journalist in Africa, we were invited at the U.S. Embassy and being lectured about, freedom, being lectured about, democracy, being lectured about so many things that have disappeared in 2 or 3 weeks.
In 2 or 3 weeks.
How can the U.S. then give us, give lectures or, even...
And we got it. And I hear you too. And we got to bring this thing down to the local level too.
Yes.
Because, there's a lot of things that we can do and there's a lot of things we can't do. And I understand that, folks. I understand that there's a sense of helplessness. A lot of folks are sitting there going, well, what do we do? We're just here. We're sitting in Vermont. There's like 640-some-thousand people here. I'm in freaking Marshfield. It's like, what do I do? How do I expect? And it's like, go to this slide, the freedom and unity. I'm calling it the freedom and unity narrative, just because I thought I'd be cute about it. It said, there's some things we can do here. We gotta, first of all, we gotta recognize the legacy of slavery. It is foundational. We gotta recognize it. And despite all of the efforts of the administration to prevent or preclude or somehow or another punish us for doing so, we have to continue to unearth the legacy of slavery. We've got to continue to unearth that. We also have to continue to talk about the cost of exclusionary policies to make sure people understand hey folks, this is going to cost you. You can't keep doing this. It's going to cost all of us. And also, we have to continue to talk about how justice benefits everybody. Policies promoting equity, inclusion, civil rights, improving economic mobility. All of these things are a necessity. And we can do some of these things locally. We can take care of home. Unity through truth and accountability is another thing. The United Nations is not built on the erasure of its darkest histories, but on a collective commitment to truth and accountability. Embracing the full narrative of slavery and systemic racism allows us for genuine reconciliation and a future where everyone, regardless of race, everybody thrives. And also, finally, framing the fight for civil rights as a universal struggle. It's not just doing the things for black folks. This is not just a black issue. This is an American issue.
Yeah.
It's a civil rights they're the bedrock of our democracy. Everything we stand for is about civil rights. So why on earth would everybody not be up in arms about a rollback of 100 years of civil rights is beyond me. But what I do know and understand is this is our moment. This is our time. This is our opportunity for us to seize the moment and take action here locally. So this is a time for us to come together and unify. There's nothing wrong with centering something that may not necessarily be your core competency, but we have to center systemic racism and civil rights right now collectively. We got to unify what it is that we're doing and get behind this issue collectively and lift it up. Eric, I'm glad you came.
Oh,
Thanks a lot.
I learned a lot, and then I can today understand why this young boy was scared about being deported. It's maybe because we also, as newly arrived, didn't go through the orientation about the country in which we live.
We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that because you and I are going to work together.
Yeah.
And we are going to hold it up. Look at the camera. So we're going to bring the refugee resettlement community and the indigenous African American community together for once. We're going to do that,
yeah.
and we're going to bring all of our people together. Okay. So again, thank you so much. I'm so glad you came. Let's keep doing this. Okay. Wakanda forever.
All right.
Listen, the administration's policies, these represent an aggressive backlash against racial justice, targeting the legacy of slavery and the hard-fought gains of civil rights activists. Efforts to halt these rollbacks, they have been hindered by white fragility, institutional and organizational resistance, political cowardice, and even greed. However, a strong counter-narrative must emerge, one that reframes civil rights protections as essential to the national unity, economic prosperity, and democratic integrity. Only by fully acknowledging systemic racism can the U.S. hope to build a just and equitable future for all. This has been Juxtaposition, issues affecting black folks affecting change. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.